I want people to say that I could take a punch and that I could take multiple punches. And some of those punches were self-inflicted, but I kept moving forward. I got knocked down, but I always found a way to stand up again. No matter where I was or what I was doing, I always believed that I could be better and I could do more.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to episode Quattro of What Will They Say. As always, this will be the last time I say the word appreciate, because I'm learning very quickly I say the word appreciate too much. I'm very grateful, therefore, for the support and, again, all the feedback, and I just welcome it. Quick word, got some stickers on the way, so we're going to go little stickers for subscribers. Well, I got like 6 of them, so just, if you don't mind, commenting below if you would like one. I don't have them yet, but I should have them here in the next couple days. And that is that. I'm just going to hop right into it. This week, I have a guy named Mike Dumont from up in Ohio. He's someone I knew well in high school and since have kept in touch a little bit. And if I'm going to be honest, which I don't like when people say that, but if I'm just going to be honest, this episode is going to be a tough one. And if it's not, and you don't feel yourself getting emotional or feel the reality within you that everything can be taken from you in a second, everything here is really just temporary. If you don't go home tonight and treat your spouse or treat your children any different if you listen to this episode entirely, then you're either a bot or you're just, I don't know what to say. Maybe you need to unmute the podcast and try it with sound on. But this is a guy who's going through it, who's in the middle of the storm right now. Who's in the middle of hell, trying to fight his way through for him and his family. And I think about when I hear stories and we hear these things, how often do we hear them, but it's 10, 15, 20 years after they went through what they went through, which is good, I think, because you have time to reflect on what you learned and what you gained. But also I think time itself can, I think, soften the pain and soften the hurt, soften the blow. And I just think if we have the opportunity to learn from someone who's going through what they're going through right now, there's so many lessons and there's so much treasure in that conversation. So that's one thing I look forward to this. And so with no further ado, the real question I think becomes is not only what would you do, but who would you become when hell was knocking on your front porch, ready to walk right in, when everything around you seems to be falling. If you wake up in one morning and realize your child's not waking up, what would you do and how would you react? Would you stick your middle finger to the skies, or would you fall down on your knees and put your back to it? And I think when we talk about strength and faith and perseverance and grit, all these things are really just theories. They're all just theories really until they're tested. So the question becomes then, who will you be or who will you become when you're tested? Don't need to go, this isn't scripted, so however you want to roll into it, but what I would like to hear is, last I knew of you, let me say this, last I knew of you is, and really, really kept in touch, because I've really disconnected from social media largely, is you got married in what year?
Yeah, so I got married in 2014 to my wife, Allison. Still been going strong. So we got married in 2014, bought a house as far as out in Lakewood, and we were living out there, and 5 years later, or about 4 years later, we got the surprise that she was pregnant with our first child, who was born on August 30th, 2018, Peyton and Dumont. 7 pounds, 7.1 pounds, and 19 ounces. So, greatest day of my life, becoming a father, and starting that whole world as far as with that. So we were living in Lakewood up until about 2020, when everything kind of went the heck as far as in the world. And during that time, Allie was pregnant with our second daughter, Madison. And about halfway through, about April, we had actually moved over to Macedonia, Ohio, and about a month or two after we had moved into our new house, our second daughter, Madison, was born. Madison Grace Dumont on June 11th, 2020. So now here I am, a father. I'm in my early 30s, and I'm married to the woman of my dreams. And now I got two beautiful girls that are my whole life. And with the struggles with that comes a lot of joy as well. But yeah, now I'm a girl dad, and just focusing as far as on trying to better myself as a father, but teaching them some life lessons along the way. And it's funny, I being a girl dad, being a male myself, I know the troubles that we always do when we're growing up, being teenage boys and stuff. And my oldest, Peyton, I used to constantly tell her, like, hey, boys are bad. We can't talk to boys. And, my first realization as far as a father and seeing that they repeat pretty much everything you say, we were at the playground, and, Peyton starts screaming my name, Daddy, Daddy. And, I'm thinking something's wrong. And all of a sudden she's like, there's a boy and he's talking to me. I'm not allowed to talk to boys. So, it kind of hit me right in the face there, like, I better watch what I say. Because I know the boy's mother wasn't too happy with me about that either. But, hey, such is life. Such is life of being a girl dad as well. So,
it's funny,
and
how did you, sorry to interrupt you, but how did you, I just now realized this too. So August 30th, 2019, my wife and I got married August 30th, and your daughter's name, that was right? August 30th, 2019?
2018.
2018. So that was 10 years after we got married. But then our daughter, obviously, is Peyton, too. So it's funny, there's there's just similarity in some of the dates. But my question was, how'd y'all settle on the name Peyton?
So it was funny. We, I'm a big sports fan. I love football. And when I found out we were having a daughter, there's a little skit I used to send to my wife, Allie, and it was Peyton Manning when he was a little kid. And, in this skit, they would say, Peyton, who's your hero? And he just real funny. He'd just say, my dad. And it was just something like, kind of like an inside joke. We'd like walk around and say that all the time. And then, when I found out that Allie was pregnant and it was going to be a girl, we both were just like, hey, Peyton is a perfect name. We reference that video all the time, and to this day we always say it to each other. So it's kind of just an inside joke. And as soon as we had mentioned, like, hey, we're having a daughter, let's name her Peyton, it just we didn't even think twice. I mean, that was the minute we came up with it, that was the name that she was gonna be called.
So she's 3. No, wait. I got my years all messed up. So this August she'll be 5.
Yeah, so this August she will be 5. That is correct.
All right. And then Madison is 2.
She is 2.5, so
okay.
She'll be 3 on June 11th.
So yeah, man. So, you sent me the pictures, and I'm obviously gonna run them through this. And like I said, I remember I've kept in touch just from a very, very large distance, with kind of trying to get really, really log out of social media in general, just for my own well-being. But like I said, I knew you got married. I knew you had, I think, 2 kids at the time. But then, obviously, on this, whatever it was, 10 months ago, you went through something that I think I can't imagine. I would love to get your input too on what you probably couldn't even imagine before it even happened. And so yeah, just walk me through that a little bit. I don't want to take the mic on this one.
Yeah, no worries. So yeah, the last 8 or 9 months have really been a struggle for my family. We were just rolling right along as far as with life, just like everybody, dropping Peyton off at school and dropping Madison off at the babysitter and just doing the normal flows of life. And um, a date that'll stand out forever in my life, May 10th of 2022 came, and um, it was a hard day. And on May 10th, I was in my home office working. I was on the phone with a customer, and it was about 9:30. And I thought it was a little strange that not Peyton nor Madison were up yet. Then I was waiting for my mother-in-law to come over to be able to watch the girls, so I could just do my daily task of working and providing for the family. And Madison had woke up a little after 9:30, and I again thought it was extremely weird that Peyton had not been up yet. And the crazy thing is Peyton was always like an early riser. Like
Mm-hmm.
I try to wake up early, about 5 o'clock every morning, and Peyton's always up like 5:05, just ready to say hi to dad. So
Mm.
she obviously wasn't up that morning either. So I went to her room, and I saw her in her bed, and she was making just like a really loud, I don't know if it was like a gurgling noise or just like wheezing noise, like just something that wasn't normal. And I'd shook her a couple times to try to wake her up, and nothing. I picked her up out of her bed and put her on her feet, and she was lifeless.
Mm.
Um, so quickly I put her on her back. I rolled her to her side, and I sprinted down the stairs, and I dialed 911. Probably 2 minutes after I dialed the phone, police showed up, and officer knocked on the door, said, "Where is she?" Said upstairs. He sprinted upstairs, grabbed her, um, and he just threw her over her shoulder, and he's like, "Hey, the ambulance is on its way, but I'm gonna be there at the end of the driveway as soon as they get here. We got to get her to the hospital." Um, so of course, I'm like in pure shock. I don't know what's going
Mm.
on. Um, I have a 2-year old that's sitting there like, why are all these people running into the house? So they take Peyton, they put her in the ambulance, and then a cop comes in and just starts asking like, what's going on, what happened. She had gone that weekend to the doctor Monday, the day before. She had actually gone to the doctor. They said she had a double ear infection, and
Mm.
it's crazy because I was playing with her on the playground all Monday after
Yeah.
she stayed home from school that day, and then obviously May 10th happened. So they get here, they transport her as far as to Akron Children's, and my mother-in-law gets here to watch Madison. And like any father, I hopped in my truck because they had already left, and I mean the drive's a blur. I think it takes 22 minutes on GPS, and I think I got there maybe 11 minutes.
Mm.
Um, I was hauling ass. There
Yeah.
wasn't nothing stopping me. There was a period of time when I was on the highway trying to get to Akron Children's that a cop pulled up behind me, and literally I was like, "Hey, like I'm not gonna stop. If I do, I'm just gonna hop out of my car. Like nothing's
Right.
stopping me."
Right.
Um, so I get to the hospital, and the hospital employees still talk about this to this day. I get to the hospital, and I'm booking it through the hospital. Like I'm doors aren't opening, and I'm ripping these doors open like I'm the Incredible Hulk. I'm jumping stairs, like I'm all over the place. And
Yeah.
people know that, hey, I'm like in a panic, and I get
Yeah.
to the ER, and they're working on her. They're trying to figure out what's wrong. And a minister comes up to me and starts
Mm.
asking me if I wanted to say some prayers, and I'm like, absolutely. And all this stuff's going on. I mean, it's chaotic. And They think maybe she had meningitis, something happened. Maybe we gave her medicine wrong. I don't know. But they're trying to figure it out. And they come into the room and they say, "Hey, we're gonna do a CT scan just to make sure everything's okay." So they do the CT scan, and by that time, my wife had actually got there from work. So she's joining me in this little side room, and we don't know what's going on. We're panicking, and there's a minister in there saying some prayers for us, and all of a sudden, like three doctors walk into the room,
Mm.
and they say the thing that you never want to hear,
Mm.
and it's she has a brain tumor, and the tumor was literally right in the middle of her head. It was a little bit bigger than a golf ball, and they had said that the pressures had built into her head because the tumor bled, and there was just a ton of fluid, and they need to like do emergency surgery to drain some of the fluid. So obviously I'm in disbelief. My body's numb,
Mm.
and now we're heading upstairs. Now we're heading up to the OR, and the neurosurgeon meets us outside. He walks us through as far as what they're going to do, find some paperwork, and then yeah, they rush her in the surgery, and now we're sitting in the waiting room. And I think the surgery was relatively quick. It was maybe about an hour, and then they were going to do an MRI after, and that usually takes about an hour. And while they're doing the MRI, I'm pacing back and forth. I swear I probably made a hole as far as in the floor by how much I was pacing back and forth. But I was never really one to like broadcast my business as far as what was going on in my life. Maybe just showing pictures of my family.
Mm-hmm.
But I went to Twitter and I just said, hey, if anyone's out there, just please pray for my little girl.
Mm.
I didn't really give much detail. But I got a massive response as far as for that of people just saying prayers for Peyton, which was great. And so we get through the surgery, and all of a sudden now we're in the ICU, and Peyton's got a drain in her head. She's on a breathing tube. They're trying to get her heart rate right and trying to just figure out overall, like, okay, we have a tumor, but like how much is really affecting her? What's really going on? So, there we are. We're just sitting there waiting in the ICU, and we're just crippled. It felt like somebody had ripped my heart out of my chest. I could barely stand up. Um, my wife was ghost white, and I mean, I probably could tell you that
Mm.
May 10th, I probably cried more most of the day, as far as just trying to figure out what the heck was going to happen. How did this happen to us? Why did this happen to us? Um, so, we're in the ICU and we're dealing with that. And, fast forward as far as 2 days uh, into the ICU, it's now May 12th. I'm sitting there struggling, I'm not sleeping. All I'm thinking about is what's going to happen to my daughter. Is she going to die? What is like? She's on a breathing tube. She's not moving. This is a healthy 3-year-old girl,
Mm.
literally a couple days ago, and now I don't know what we're with now. And so I made a post as far as on Facebook. I saw as far as when I was waiting for surgery, what would happen on Twitter, and just getting the prayers from that. So I knew family had been asking my mom what was going on or stuff like that. So I just was like, hey, make this easy. This is what's going on, people. Like, this is kind of what we're dealing with. If you guys could just take like 2-3 minutes out of your time, out of your day, and just say a quick prayer for Peyton, I would totally appreciate that. And through that, like, I got like an overwhelming response. Tons of people just reaching out, anybody and everybody who I was friends with, and people that I wasn't even friends with. I mean, the thing just kind of got shared over and over again, of just me asking for prayers. And, through that, I kind of felt I got some comfort. That was the first time
Mm.
in probably those 3 or 4 days that like I kind of had the weight of the world like kind of lifted off my shoulders. I
Mm.
kind of felt more relaxed. I wasn't crying as much. Peyton's godfather had actually came to see her that it was either Thursday or Friday of that week. Um, just because once he had heard about it, he wanted to see her, and he walks in the room and he's sobbing and he's crying, and he looks at me and he goes, "How come you're not crying anymore?" And I said, "Man, God's got this. Like,
Mm.
God has this, man. Like, I feel it, I know it, and we just gotta hold tight. We gotta, fight through the storm and just
Mm.
continue to stand by and continue to focus on what's important." And so, yeah, so I mean, that's really just kind of been carrying me through a lot of this stuff. I'll fast forward. A couple weeks in the ICU, obviously not much has changed, and they decide like, hey, she needs another drain put in. So she had a surgery. This is a week after she's already been
Mm.
admitted, to have another drain put in her head. So now she's got 2 drains in her head to make sure the spinal fluid is all as good as even. And then they said, hey, we're going to do surgery. We need to get a biopsy. We need to see what we're dealing with, how bad this is, and if we can get any of this. So she did her surgery, I want to say it was like May 20th or 21st. It was one of those days for that. And when they did the surgery, again, I'd asked people to pray for Peyton and just have prayers for her and just think about her during this. And surgery was about 5 or 6 hours, and comes back. Surgery was successful. She comes back into the PICU, and she's her head's. I mean, it is what it is. Her head's got a huge cut on it. There's stitches, staples all over the place.
Mm.
Her hair's buzzed, and she just doesn't look like my little girl. And it was hard to see her like that. But doctor comes in and he says, hey, like, we got a good piece to biopsy, and we were able to dig the middle of the tumor out, and it came. I remember this verbatim. He said, it was really weird. Like, it was just coming to me really easy. He's like, I was expecting a lot more blood, and I wasn't expecting us to get as much as we got. So overall, it was a pretty successful surgery. So, now we're just waiting for the biopsy. What is this?
Mm-hmm.
How bad is this? What are the next steps for that? So we were waiting a long time on the biopsy. I think typically biopsies can come back like within a week. Our total wait time was almost 4 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so we're just going through the process, day in, day out, staying at the hospital. We were living at Ronald McDonald House. We were seeing our two-year-old daughter maybe a couple hours a day, but Allie and I were mostly at the hospital, 24/7. We were always there, sitting next to Peyton. And so Peyton gets probably 2 weeks into her stay at the PICU. They're like, hey, like, she's stable. Let's move her up to a rehab floor. We can start doing some rehab, and then when the biopsy results come back, we can determine what the next steps are. And hey, that's fine. So she goes up to the rehab floor. She does well. She starts opening her eyes. She's off the breathing tube. She's breathing on her own. Like, she's starting to move. Like, you're starting to see her legs move, her arms move. Like, you're like, okay, maybe things are good. And then we had gone home for the night, and we came back to the hospital that early the next morning, and they start saying, like, hey, her heart rate's pretty low. And we're thinking maybe there's more fluid built up in her head. They had removed the drains at this time, so we think we need to put another drain in. So, okay, if that's what we got to do, that's what we got to do. Back at it. She goes into surgery. She gets the drain put in her head, and we're back now into PICU after we fought so hard to get out of there. So now we're in the PICU, and, she's got a drain in her head, and, it was a long day, and I remember we went and walked down the street to go grab something to eat, Allie and I did, and they were saying they were going to do another MRI that afternoon. So we were like, hey, we're going to go grab something to eat. So we went and we grabbed something to eat, and probably about 40 minutes into that, we get a phone call from the nurse. And she's like, hey, you guys got to come back here. We're getting ready to take her to the MRI. I'm like, okay, fine. So we end up getting back there. All of a sudden, as we walk into the PICU, we hear screaming, and it's Peyton. She's screaming, freaking out. Her heart rate's going up. They don't know what's going on. They don't know why all of a sudden she's freaking out. So they sedated her, and they said her breathing was not normal. So they needed to put a breathing tube in her again. And again, we were kind of deflated, walking in on this, and, we had made some progress, and now here we are. So shortly after they did that, the neurosurgeon grabbed us, and he was now with a lady who was the oncologist, neuro-oncologist, and they pulled us into a private room and told us, hey, we got some of the biopsies back, and none of them are looking good. They had early signs had shown that it was I think it's called a glioma, and it was really aggressive. So aggressive that they told us that her chance of living or surviving was about 10%. So they were now in the process of saying, hey, the next stage is to do radiation. And the hard part about this was my wife is an RN. She works for University Hospital. The kids are on her insurance. So insurance bullshit, if you want to talk about that. I've lived it. We were out of network. And they basically said, hey, this is kind of our opportunity to transport her to Rainbow's Babies and get her ready for treatment there. So, we had made a ton of relationships at Akron Children. Obviously, we don't want to be at the hospital, but we'd made a lot of good friends. People had heard our story. People had know who we were. And so now we were leaving all that behind, and we were going somewhere new and kind of starting the whole process all over. So, and we prepare for the fight of our lives. 10% is still better than 0. So I thought there was still a shot. So they had transferred us over to Rainbow's Babies, and as soon as we got there, we were in the PICU, and for some odd reason, they put us in, the smallest and darkest room in the PICU, and I will remember, being there, just being extremely depressed, not only just knowing that, my baby girl's about to go through radiation, and, typically they don't do radiation till anyone who's 7 or older, so she's 3. So this is really going to, they're talking about her brain's going to swell, it's not going to be pretty. And I'm just thinking, hey, this is torture you're going to have to go through to potentially live, a 10% chance to live. It's fucked up. So, we're sitting in this dark, small room at Rainbow's, and, just depressed as hell, and just again continuing to share my story, continuing to tell what's going on, and through that I was approached by a friend of mine who I was friends with in high school, Chelsea Pizak, and Chelsea had reached out to me a couple years prior. Chelsea had done a bunch of fundraising for herself as she needed a stem cell transplant. So she had reached out to me and said, hey, I heard your story. I know what you're in, what you're going through, and I want to help you. I want to help raise some money for you guys. I know hospital bills are stacking up. I'm missing work. Allie's missing work. So, she had approached me to do a fundraiser event. And I said, sure, why not? Let's do this. This will help get my mind off this for a little bit. It'll help maybe not make me so depressed. It'll kind of keep me busy. So we had started that planning and stuff for that. And we came up with the idea of Peyton Nation. And it just kind of stuck as far as from there. So we had made T-shirts to help raise money. I made like Live Strong bracelets. Instead of Live Strong, it says Peyton Strong on it in our favorite color, purple. And, we started getting people registered for this fundraiser and started selling T-shirts and bracelets to go along with it. Chelsea had also helped set up a GoFundMe page for my family, which was very beneficial. And I can't express the generosity and how many people have came with me on this fight. It's been tremendous. So we did the fundraiser. I want to say it was like maybe June 18th or something like that, in Medina, Majestic Meadows. And a week before we did the fundraiser, the Medina Gazette had done a story about my daughter, just to help bring light to the story and help get as many people as possible to the fundraiser. So we ended up going to this fundraiser, and there was like over 60 plus people that were there. People that I knew, some people I didn't know, old high school friends, anybody and everybody. I mean, there was just random people that just said, hey, I saw this in the paper and I wanted to at least come and give you a hug. I was like, okay, that's awesome. So we did the fundraiser, and at the end, the owner of Peyton's preschool, I had asked them to say a prayer at the end for us. And I'd given them this prayer that I've said every single night while Peyton's been in the hospital. So we had 60 plus people holding hands in a big, large circle, saying a prayer for my daughter. And I mean, that just touched Allison and I, but also gave me more motivation to, continue to fight this for my daughter. Again, I'm not a surgeon, I'm not a doctor, so my biggest way to fight this or fix this for my daughter has just been to get out of my knees and pray, and try to get as many people as possible to pray as well. Let alone, I had done these T-shirts, and seeing the T-shirt and my daughter's name on the T-shirt, Peyton, I just kind of got motivated. I wanted as many people as possible to have these T-shirts, to have my daughter's name on the front of their chest. And it's funny, I'll be in Medina or I'll be around the area, and I just see random people wearing these T-shirts. So it's super cool. But it's a story to tell her from when things do get better. So after this fundraiser, we had gone back to Rainbows, and they had told us, hey, we're going to move you over to another room. Another room became open. And this was a room that actually had light. It was a little bit big. It was a lot bigger. And it'd be funny how that changes your perspective on things. And, why we get moved to this room, her doctor comes and says, hey, we're not going to do radiation tomorrow. I think we're going to change our plans. We're going to maybe do chemo. And I'm thinking like, okay, that's strange. We've been preparing for radiation. We've been preparing to get ready for this. So, and he said he was going to stop by later on. And this was on June 21st. And I had left the ICU. I went down, there's like a Starbucks right down the street from the hospital. So I went there to go do some work. And I remember I got a phone call from Allie. And Allie called me. She goes, hey, the doctor just came in, and you're never going to believe this, but the final test came back, and it's benign. And I go, what? She goes, yeah, the tumor's benign. So up until this point, there's 5 tests that they run a tumor or a mass, whatever you want to call them, under, and 4 out of the 5 tests had said it was aggressive and very minimal chance of life. And the 5th one is, from my understanding, like a DNA test, and that fifth one, if it changes the whole thing, flips the whole thing. And the fifth one came back that it was benign. And they had reran it several times. And they actually noted in a documentation that's what took so long, because they were like really thrown off on how this had happened.
Wow.
So, God had answered a prayer. It was the greatest day of my life. Like I said, May 10th is the worst freaking day of my life. June 21st is by far one of the greatest days of my life. So it completely flipped everything. The doctor had mentioned, hey, our goal now is we're just going to get you guys upstairs. She went from a 10% chance of living to a 97% chance of living. And he's like, we're going to get you out of the PICU. We're not going to do radiation. We're going to do chemo, but at a later date. Like right now, the goal is to get her into therapy, get her moving again. So, we had our choice. Do we want to do the Cleveland Clinic, or did we want to go back to Akron? And I told people that we were coming back to Akron because Peyton was special, and Peyton's going to change the game. This was before I even knew this stuff. I told him she was going to survive, and we're going to be back here for rehab. And sure as shit, that was happening a lot sooner than I expected. So we were transferred up to the 7th floor at University Hospital, and I share this because this was another sign of God being present. And Peyton gets transferred into a room. The one nurse had said it was the penthouse suite of that floor, which is, hey, it's a hospital room.
Right.
But on the outside of that room was a tag, and the tag had a gentleman's name, and his name was Alfred Penco. So Alfred Penco is actually my mom's uncle, and he had passed away years ago, and he had donated all his inheritance to Rainbow's Babies.
Wow.
And for that, they had made a room for him, and Peyton just so happened to be staying in that room.
Dang.
So, yeah, I mean, you talk about goosebumps. Like, not only did we get this benign result, now it shows, like, hey, I am present. I am here. I am watching over you guys. So I'm real fired up at this point in time.
Right.
I'm, pumped. I don't know what's going to happen now through this. So, we get back to Akron. This is about, I think we were maybe at UH for, like, another couple days. So, like, it was maybe late June. We get back to Akron, and she starts therapy. She starts going through all this, and, things are fine. It's not like she's sitting up and standing and doing all this other stuff, but she's, making movements and, making small steps each and every day. And then she started chemo at the end of July. And then on September 15th, Peyton got released from the hospital. So we were in the hospital from May 10th all the way to September 15th, which is a total of 128 days that we were in the hospital. So, we're finally ready to continue to fight this battle, fight it at home, do outpatient rehab, and just continue to get Peyton better. She was getting chemo once a week. Every Wednesday she would get chemo, and then she'd have therapy throughout the week. And so we were doing that. On October 3rd, she took her first steps walking, which was amazing to see. The unfortunate thing was on October 5th, she was back in the hospital. And she went back in the hospital, this time for pressure buildup again in her head. And she had a surgery to have a shunt placed in her head. And I remember this not because it was another surgery, but, one, I did not want her to have a shunt just because, it's a foreign object in your body. And two, it's, let's be honest, it's something that could break. So she gets this shunt and literally changes the game. She gets the shunt, she gets released from the hospital, and now she's able to stand up. Now she's getting stronger to, sit up. Now she's walking not once, but she's walking multiple times throughout the day. She's taking steps. So again, it just showed me like some bad news that turned into good news. And it really just kind of changed kind of where she's at. She's had a couple reactions as far as to her chemo. We were in the hospital over Thanksgiving. She had pancreatitis from her chemo reaction. And then day before Christmas Eve, we were also in the hospital as she had gotten a cold and kind of got a little out of whack as far as in general. So from May all the way up until the end of the year, we literally were in the hospital for every holiday. I think the only holidays we actually enjoyed together as a family was President's Day and Halloween. Yeah. So, but hey, it's okay. One of the other things that was nice, being partnered with University Hospital is, Peyton, around Halloween time, she was in there as far as for outpatient surgery or outpatient therapy, and the Cleveland Browns are always active as far as at that hospital. And Allie and Peyton were leaving, and the one surgeon's sister had actually stopped Allie and said, "Hey, come get a picture with these guys." And it was Wyatt Teller, Joel Batonio, took a picture with her. And then they invited us to this event at Cleveland Browns Stadium, a Halloween event. So we got to do that. And, we did that. Peyton went as a scuba diver, and I made a nice little cardboard cage around her wheelchair, and her little sister was a shark. So we made some cool things out of it. But Jimmy Haslam's son-in-law, JW, actually came up to me and said, "Hey, I'm familiar with your story. We're all praying for you guys here at the Cleveland Browns." And he saw that I had this pink bracelet or purple bracelet on my wrist, and he had asked, "Hey, could you just send me some of those?" And I was, thinking ahead. I had already had the bag with me. So I'd given him one of those, and then all the players that were there had one. And I share this story because I think it's super cool. On Halloween night, the Browns were playing the Bengals, and Cade York, the Browns kicker, makes his first field goal. And all of a sudden they show to the camera, and he's got the purple bracelet on his wrist. And he had worn that the rest of the season. So I every game I was watching him when he'd kick a field goal, he's got Peyton's wristband on. He's got Peyton's wristband on. So that was super cool to have that and just be able to share that. So, right now, here we are, February. Peyton last week just got accepted into a day rehab program where it's a little bit more intense therapy. She's getting it Monday through Friday for multiple hours throughout the day. She's walking with assistance. I can hold her one hand and she can walk. She does the stairs at our house. She could sit up. She can hold her head up. She's making some really good strides. The unfortunate thing is I have yet to hear her talk in 272 days. So I'm dying to hear my daughter's voice. She said what I think maybe was 2 words, but I can't, it's been so spotty. But yeah, we're just making progress, and we're just kind of taking it one day at a time. But I think, throughout this, there's been a lot of emotions. I've been in dark places. But the one thing that's just been consistent for me is I've stayed true to God. I trust God. Something tells me that in the end this is going to be okay. I read a disciple every morning, multiple books people share with me, and it's funny how whether you're religious or not, and again, I'm not trying to push anything on anybody, but just quick little snippets that I just see, whether it's on Instagram when I'm doing my quick 5-minute prayer read for the morning is it's all consistent and all tells me the same. Weather the storm, trust in the Lord, and all will be fine. And there's different variations as far as with that and stuff, but everything I've seen up until has just been constant. Like, you'll be okay. Things are going to be okay. Hold tight. The storm doesn't last forever. The rain will clear out one day. This pain will eventually turn into something beautiful. And that's, like I said, as long as I have hope here, just taking it one day at a time.
What was your, you mentioned faith, and that's the one thing that stood out to me too, has been like your faith throughout this. And, but what was your faith? I don't want to say like faith life, but what was your relationship with Christ, or what was your relationship with God before like all this, before, May 9th or May 10th, I should say?
Yeah. So it's kind of funny. Both of my parents are Catholic, but I wasn't baptized, and I wasn't raised in a church at all. When I was 18, I got my first tattoo, and somehow, some way, I thought, hey, a crucifix would be cool. So I have a crucifix on the middle of my back. Fast forward, when I was getting married to Allie, her family is heavily involved in their Catholic church. And I, before we got married, I converted. I went through classes and stuff like that, and I was baptized. And then I had gone to church like consistently, like maybe twice a month. I try to go every month. And then it's kind of grown. Like I've been, throughout the years, I had worked somewhere, and I had a gentleman, a mentor of mine. He invited me to a Christian guys retreat in Vermilion, Ohio, at Beulah Beach, and I remember going there, and I'd already been baptized, and I'd been an avid churchgoer. I wasn't like reading scripture or anything throughout the day, but I remember we were sitting in that cafeteria, and he goes, "Hey, have you committed your life to Christ?" And I go, "Well, yeah." Telling him what I do, and he goes, "No." He's like, "That's not what we're talking about." He's like, "Have you literally opened your arms and said, God, like, you're who I need to be connected to?" So I was like, no, but let's do it. Like, I'm definitely for that. I'm feeling it. Like, we're at this retreat. Like, it was the thing to do. And so I remember I did this with them, my mentor, and then this other individual that he knew. We ran through this pamphlet and how to do it and whatever. And I remember I felt like, oh, okay, that was pretty cool. And this is a group of guys, like, I don't know, there's maybe 50 guys in there, and some of them are pretty high end, like lawyers, top end doctors, stuff like that. And I remember like one guy was giving a speech talking about something, and he's just like, "Hey, does anybody have any questions?" And I just like stood up and I grabbed the microphone, and I somehow, some way, like my body went numb, and I was like, "Hey, I just want everybody to know that I've committed my life to Christ. And it's because of you guys here, and I can't thank you guys enough." And I remember everyone just stood up and like started giving me a standing ovation, and then I sat down, and my mentor was like, "Well, what the hell is that?" And I'm like, "Dude, something told me to get up and do this. Like, I don't know." So it was kind of crazy. Like, I felt God's presence, several times throughout my life, and so I did that, and I continued to go to church, and I think probably within the last like 3 years or so, I've been really committed where, I'm reading scripture every day. I have a really good friend of mine, Peyton's godfather. We'll do Bible studies together and just talk about some different things. So it's kind of been this like full like transformation since I was, 18. I feel like that was kind of, God putting his stamp on me to, I'm 35. So kind of through that transformation, it's just kind of more and more, it's just grown over time.
Yeah, man, I feel like, well, obviously in Ohio, I think there's a pretty large Catholic population, and that's what my wife was sort of brought up in, kind of the same probably cadence you guys were. Like, they go Christmas and some holidays and stuff, but it just always felt, like, to me, it's always, and this isn't against Catholicism or anything like that, but it always felt like steps I had to do and things I had to do this, then you do that. And then there came a point in my life, like 3-4 years ago, whereas like it became more real. Almost sounds like the way you had in that conference, that retreat rather, where it's like, oh, this isn't about like you have to read your Bible, but you get to a point where you want to read it because you realize you have to be, I got to get dialed in with him, man, because if I'm not, then my mind, like you said, dude, my mind goes to dark places, and I haven't gone through nearly the things you've gone through. It's like I need him versus like me doing these steps to feel accepted. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's like always kind of like the biggest, I guess that's where people a lot of times get confused. Like, hey, yeah, going to church is important. Don't get me wrong. Like, you want to go to church, you got to do those types of things. I get that completely. But it's not so much doing that. It's more the relationship, knowing who God is and why God is the way he is. And he literally speaks to you through his words. And again, this isn't, I believe in God. I mean, you believe in God. I mean, if you don't believe in God, okay. Like,
right.
it is what it is.
Right.
But through my life, through the struggles I've had, whether it be with my daughter or just career struggles or something, I get a sigh of relief from it. If I'm having a bad day, I'll just, hey, God, help me understand like what you're trying to teach me here. And if it doesn't go my way, it doesn't go my way, but I'm learning a lesson along through it. So, I think you got to understand the bigger picture. We don't know why some of the stuff happens to us. Am I mad at my situation? Absolutely. Is it bullshit that I got hit with this? Yeah, absolutely. I'm a good person. I've always been a good person, but I also don't think God doesn't give you anything you can't handle. And through this storm, I know he's not only showing me his presence, but he's also showing me that like I wasn't who I was supposed to be prior. I'm a completely different person than I was 8 months ago. And it's just through these trials and tribulations that it's changed who I am. And I could tell you right now, I'm probably not even halfway through what I'm supposed to be.
Right.
But you could see it and you like can understand it. And then the more you read his words, the more you get his purpose and like what he's trying to tell you. And it just becomes that like aha moment where it just kind of hits you and you're like, yeah, I'm just going to start doing this. I'm going to embrace this. And I can't live without it. And it hits everybody different.
Right.
But it sounds like kind of hits you the same way.
Yeah, man, it's funny because even and I'm the same as you, man. Like I'll tell people who save me, but I'm not gonna push it on you. But at the same time, right. It's like I like to look around. I'm like, there's two types of people. There's people who walk around, I think, and realize the miracle we're walking in and realize that there's something bigger going on here. And then I feel like there's the other dude who's walking and lightning's almost hit him 6-7 times behind him and he just doesn't even know it. I don't mean that from like the hell's raining down standpoint. Just there's something more going on here. And I'm guilty of like walking through life like that. This is all there is. And kind of just walking through like nothing, there's no meaning to anything. There's nothing greater going on. But then when I think, I don't know. I don't know. So I've definitely done both those things. But I guess my point is even just recently, man, my mind, I was telling my wife this morning, man, my mind has been kind of going in some dark places. Like, and I can't really pinpoint what it is. And, so this morning I got up and I had like a devotional, and then I like to read a little bit in the morning, but I'd gotten away from reading scripture, and I was reading this devotion, and anyways, I was like, I need to just spend some time in the Word because I don't know what this is in my mind going on, but I just feel very dark sometimes, like just kind of comes and goes in the past couple of weeks. And anyways, so I was like, I'm gonna read this devotional, and then I'm gonna read a little bit of the Word just to see what happens, because I feel like every time we open it, it's like, oh, hey, dummy. Yeah, this helps, And anyways, the title of it was Read Your Bible. And it was like, spend time in the Word, man. Like, just, you don't do it out of guilt, though, but do it because you need it. And anyway, so I was like, all right, message heard, message received. And so I read it. And it's just so interesting how everything throughout the day will almost tie in too perfectly to what I've read that morning. It's like kind of eerie.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy how it works. I mean, trust me, I will. I'll have a bad day. Peyton maybe not feeling good. She's not doing as much. She's maybe not walking as strong, and I'm down in the dumps. I'm just down completely. And I just keep asking, hey man, just show me a quick sign. Just show me a sign you're still here, and it happens. Or I'll read my devotion, and it just it'll just continue to say, weather the storm, hold tight, it'll be all okay. Trust in the Lord, and you have no worries. And I see that stuff, and sometimes you read these words, shit doesn't get better,
right?
And you're just okay, it's not an instant fix. I mean, it's not special. It's not but I think if you ask to give me some calmness, to take some of the weight off, to put my anxiety onto you, at least for me, I have this breath of fresh air. My shoulders aren't as tense. I don't feel as much pressure. It just seems to work. And look, whether when you die, if you go to heaven or even if there is no heaven, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But I'd much rather spend my time here being committed towards that, hoping that is the case, than not giving a shit about that and then realizing on my final judgment day that I effed up,
Right.
So I'd rather just do as I'm told, I guess. And like I said, there's no way I could have gotten through what we've been going through here the last 8 months without him. I'd say this to people and they don't understand, they don't believe it. I literally would have been dying in a ditch. I would have maybe drank myself to death. I mean, trust me, I've thought of let's just go off 480.
Yep.
Again, I'm not suicidal, but
yep,
those crosses everybody's mind,
for sure.
Especially when you put the trauma that we've experienced here. It's tough. I mean, this is pure torture every single day. I wake up dreading getting out of bed because I'm going to be tortured for the next however many hours, seeing my little girl like that. But I feel like shit, and I go in her room and she smiles at me, and I'm like, okay, we're going to be okay.
Right.
It's just another tough day. We're just going to take it one step at a time, just like I tell her when we're walking, one foot after the other. So, it's a process, and you just gotta, I don't know, just truly believe it to make it work, I guess.
How have you and Allie been, just throughout this, in terms of just your marriage? How's that been?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be lying if I said there wasn't struggles. I mean, this has probably been the biggest test in our marriage. I mean, let's be honest. When you're married and you don't have kids, everything's great. The minute you have kids, your marriage gets tested right away. So
right.
now add in a trauma. It's been tough. There's been times where, I don't know, we won't talk to each other throughout the day. I mean, and she's very much holds a lot of her emotions in, which is tough for me. I wear my emotions on my sleeve, and we just kind of take that day by day. We make sure we talk when there's issues. There's stuff bothering us. We know that there's an unexpected behind us, but I think we just try to take it one day at a time. We try to, recently we've been lucky enough to be able to get out of the house once a week to just go to dinner, and I know a lot of that's helped. So I think just communicating and just continuing to make sure each of us are okay, because look, at the end of the day, my family is my most important thing, and my kids obviously are little mini-me's. I love my kids, and I would do anything for my kids, but my wife is my partner, and if our partnership's not strong, then we can't make our family strong. So I've kind of put a lot of that pressure on me to be kind of the person that keeps everything together, but your partner's just as strong as you are. So I think as long as you just have each other's back and you continue to make sure that you vocalize what your concerns are or what you're struggling with for the day, it's helped us. just continuing to keep taking those steps forward.
Mm. Yeah, because I feel like I love your thought process too, because I think you see it sometimes when a kid gets sick, and no matter what happens, you sometimes see the parents will split. And I've never really understood it. No, of course I haven't. I've been blessed. I haven't walked through it, but I could see, I think, how it would happen, because you're placing your kids' immediate needs and desires, which are critically important, over everything else. And then I think inherently, you don't mean anything ugly about it, but inherently I think we put our spouses and our wives second, or third, if we're really being honest, behind God, and then our immediate health concerns with your daughter, and then your wife, and the next thing you know, I think you walk a couple years down this road and you're looking at this girl and you're like, I don't even know you. I would imagine that's how it would happen. If you don't, like you said, if you don't do the dinners, if you don't try to at least maintain, because that's where it all started,
Oh yeah, absolutely. And trust me, I mean, like I said, we've had our struggles. The biggest thing, that's helped me, at least from this, is, just through my outreach, like on Facebook, and just kind of the people that have connected with me and have reached out. I've had a lot of people that have reached out who've gone through traumas with their kids. Kid had cancer, or, kid had, I don't know, something happened. Some even, unfortunately, like their kids have passed away. And, that's probably been the biggest thing for me, is like these people have reached out to me, and they're willing to have a conversation. And, they find out as far as what our story is, what we're going through. And it's not the, keep your head up, it'll be okay, one day at a time. Like, it's not the stuff you want. Like, you know what I mean? And I get it. Like, some people just don't know what to say to you.
Right.
And I don't expect them to, but it's like the actual real shit. Like, I remember I talked to this guy, his daughter's 16, something similar to Peyton, fully healthy, and then one day just kind of got hit with everything, and, she's learning how to walk and stuff like that. And he literally was like, first sentence out of his mind is, when's the last time you and your wife went to dinner? When's the last time you and your wife, made love, or whatever? And, I don't even know this guy, and he's asking me this, and he's like, look, dude, like, he's like, you can't be strong and continue to do this if your family's broken. And your family consists of your children and your wife. He's like, your wife is your partner. He's like, you are the man. You need to keep things together, and you need to make sure that the family stays together. He's like, that's the biggest thing to get you through this. He's like, that's what God wants you to do as well. That's what you're being tasked with. And, what he was telling me, I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense. I need to get my shit in order too. Like, I get it. I'm grieving over my daughter and trying to figure this shit out and balancing work and all this other stuff. But yeah, dude, like, I gotta keep my partner happy too. So yeah, we just kind of keep taking it one day at a time, but just making sure that there's that open line of communication. I think that's the biggest part. Oh,
yeah, great. Dude, that's a wise man right there you bumped into.
I talk to the guy often. It's the one thing, like, he's been going through this for like 3 years, and he's older. He's like in his 50s. He's got 3 kids. They're all like relatively in their teens and stuff. And he right after he asked me about my wife, he goes, "Okay, now the next question." He's like, "Where do you cry at?" And I'm like, "Wait, what?" He's like, "Look, dude, I've been in this 3 years. I cry every morning in the shower." And I'm just like, "Yeah, dude. Like, I do the same, and I cry every morning when I'm on my way to the gym. I'll cry at the gym. Like, I mean, just because like things are like looking up and getting better, like, I'm still hurt. Like, I'm still feeling like shit. This is still torture. I cry every day. And it's just hard. Just, I mean, especially, I don't want to take anything away from somebody, but I had a healthy daughter. She was 3. And then one day, like, the whole world just went upside down. And I still can't, like, that's so hard to get over. And it just shows, like, how quick and how short things can be. And, yeah, I mean, sometimes they're tears of anger, or they're tears of, like, regret. Like, the hard thing for me is, I think about the times, like, I yelled at her, or, like, disciplined her, and I'm like, damn, why did I do that? Like, and it's, you beat yourself up over that stuff, and it's tough. But like I said, I think God's going to give me my day of redemption, and he's going to make everything okay at the end of the day. And when that comes, I'm going to capitalize on it and just try to be the best father I can be.
What would you man, I appreciate you saying the crying thing too. I think that's so just being that's
It's tough.
that's just real shit though,
I
you
want
know.
to be. Yeah, I want to be macho, but like, I cry
Yep.
every day. So
No, I mean that's yeah. I mean, gosh, great. That's amazing. What? How about? So you mentioned your daughter being 3 years old. I was thinking about this. Is May 9th. What would you tell if you go back to May 9th, the day before? What would you tell yourself?
So I've thought about that often. It's crazy. She had stayed home from school that day with the ear infection, and she was sleepy, and but she still wanted to play. And I'll never forget this. Like, my mom had watched my other daughter, Madison, and she had dropped her off about like 5:00. And I remember my mom standing out in the backyard going, "Oh, Peyton must be feeling better," because we were out back playing on her playground. She loves her playground. Going down the slide, pushing around the swing, and just having a good time. But I do remember, like, that night, she had gotten sick, and she kept saying, like, her head hurt. And again, I'm thinking, as any parent would, like,
Yep.
okay, this is her ear infection. That makes perfect sense. Like, this isn't a brain tumor. Like, nothing tells me that. But if I could, I definitely would have taken her to the ER that night, and who knows what would have happened then. And I try not to like think of. I mean, you try not to think of what ifs, but
Sure.
that definitely crossed my mind every single day, and I, mad at myself. Again, if a doctor couldn't recognize this when she saw the doctor that morning, like, how could I? But
Right.
it's just hard. Like, I don't know. Could I have prevented this? I don't know. I try not to like beat myself up over that, but it's still something I got to live with.
I think it's almost a natural man thing too, because you alluded earlier, like, you'll cry the tears, and then crying the tears, I think, is what makes you such a dog when it comes to when times get hard during the day. Is you've cried the tears, and then so you can fight the fight and carry the weight for your family. I think, whereas, like, we're gonna get through this. It's like is this Pete Rippey, the Godfather?
Mitch Rippey, Pete's
Oh, Mitch. Okay, yes. Okay, yeah. So Mitch. So when Mitch says, "Dude, why aren't you crying?" It's like, because you got that soft-spoken confidence that God's got it under control, but you've also cried the tears because you'll carry the weight. And then so I think the caveat to that though is you're willing to carry the weight, which is I think is what we're called to do. But that also means carrying the weight of, like, what if I did this? What if I would have done this? You know what I'm saying? So you carry the weight of, I should have known, I should have taken her to the ER, even though that would have been like almost fortune teller-esque for you to take her to the ER and see. It's not even possible. It's, but you're willing to bear it. You want to bear the weight for your kids, I think, and your family, but it's just a fine line, because I think you can go deep into the route of shame. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that was something early on through this. Like, that was something I really struggled with. I've talked to therapists about it and stuff, and there's no way I would have known. I could have even taken her to the ER, and they could have just been like, "Oh no, she's fine." Like, there was like no indications that showed like, "Hey, she's got this freaking brain tumor in the middle of her head." Because we even looked back. Like, I talked to her doctor, her pediatrician, a couple weeks after we were in the hospital, and she's like, her blood pressure wasn't high, like her heart rate was fine. Like, she went for a daily checkup. You know what I mean? She went for her checkup that day, and if a trained professional can't see that, how the hell is dad supposed to figure that out? So,
Right.
I wish I could. I wish I had a time machine. I would go back and do that, and like I said, maybe things would be different. Maybe she'd be talking. Maybe some of this would have been sped up, but the fact of the matter still remains the same. She had a brain tumor.
Right.
That was still going to be something that we would have to deal with. So, I hate this saying, but it kind of is what it is. But I've struggled with that. I've lost a lot of sleep for that.
I'm not, obviously I'm not close to the situation at all, but for what it's worth, it's like, don't carry that weight, man. Don't carry that weight, because it's a lie.
Yeah, no, I agree, but it's just hard not to. You know what I mean?
For
It's
sure.
just, you're always gonna think that. I mean, I don't know. Put walking down the street with your kids and a dog bites your kid. Like something in your mind's
Right.
gonna tell you, like, oh, I could have stopped that dog.
Mm.
It's I don't know if it's just the father instinct in us or what, but
Mm.
yeah, it's just it's always gonna be there until the day she's back and I don't have to worry about it. When God gives me my redemption, I can take that away. But until then, I mean, it's always going to be there.
So that leads me. I was kind of got two more questions I was kicking around in my head too, even as we close up, because I just appreciate your time, man. What are the goals? Like, what are your goals and her goals for, the next, how many ever years? What's it look like, for Peyton?
So they had said, recovery was going to be a year plus. So let's see, we're, I don't know, 8-9 months into that. And then from there, we don't know. So I guess our goal right now is at some point in time, there's going to be a period where she'll plateau. And usually what they say is when she plateaus, that's, who she'll be. So like right now, the goal is, we just accomplished one and getting her in this inpatient rehab program. So it's just trying to maximize as much therapy as we can give her throughout the day, and then I'm her therapist at night. So we do daddy boot camp every night, and I think at the end, like, she'll appreciate it because I push her, but I've noticed, like, I've probably been the one that has given her the most gains. A lot of the stuff she does that she's capable of doing right now is just because we work on it constantly. So the goal is to get her as close to 100% as possible, and then I'd love to be able to have her go to school next August and start school again. She loved school. She was, I know everybody talks about this as far as with their kids, but Peyton was such an intelligent little girl. She has her dad's height, so she's tall. But other than that, she was just like more intelligent than what her age was. Like, a lot of people always thought she was like 6 or 7, and I'd be like, no, she's 3. And they're like, well, how can she say like words like that, or how is she having a conversation like this? And like, even when she was at preschool, they were like, yeah, we moved her up with the older kids, and she's kind of a leader in that class. So she just, her mind was just like working different. Like, my dad used to call her young Sheldon. And she's just extremely intelligent. So, I know that was a gift that God gave her, and I'd love to be able to get her back in school next year for the school year, and hopefully we can do that.
What do you think the biggest, I know there's probably a ton of things you've learned, obviously, but what do you think the biggest lesson you've learned throughout the past 9-10 months is?
Patience. My biggest hurdle in life, I'm in sales just like you are, so I'm very impatient. I think if this has taught me anything, it's to have patience, and just never really give up. If you're still breathing, you can still keep going. So I think just being patient, allowing things to play out, and just going balls to the wall and giving it everything you got. Every day God wakes you up is an opportunity to continue to push forward.
What would you want Peyton to say about you?
I just want her to just say that she's, just proud of her dad. Peyton, Peyton used to tell me all the time, like, oh, daddy can fix anything. Like, something would break and somehow I'd figure it out, or she used to call me Superman. And that's kind of probably the most crippling thing about this is I can't fix this. Like I said, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a surgeon, so my biggest fight has been through prayer. So I just I hope she's happy, and she knows that, like, my dad busted his ass for me and to try to get me back to where I am. So, I'd love I'd love her to call me Superman again.
Mhm. What would you want your wife to say about you?
I mean, just that I was a good husband, good family, supported our family in the time of need. Rallied the troops and took control, and just showed her that, the man she married cares deeply about not only her, but the family that we created, and I'd do anything for these guys.
I'll tell you, man. I think I saw. I don't remember what it even was. I've just been, like I said, following from afar. But just seeing the video of you walking with your daughter throughout the kitchen, which apparently is this boot camp you're talking about, man, it's like that's a dude, man. That's a guy I want to get behind. That's a cause I want to get behind. I want to be that for my kids. I'm fascinated by this concept of fighting, and I think inherently that's what we want to do as men. We want to lift things, do things, help our family, lead our family, and fight. And just seeing you walk in with your daughter, man, as if she's, just learning to walk again. It's like, dude, that did something to me, man, because we haven't been in touch much, but I can just tell you, Lute, I love you. I love what you're doing, man. It's like you just inspire me to be a better husband and father, just walking through the storm, but still being like, I am the storm. Like, I got this. You know what I'm saying? Like, just being that guy has been incredible.
Yeah, and I think, I've had, other people, say, like, obviously stuff like that. Like, hey, they've admired my story. They love my strength, but obviously I'm not trying to put myself on a stage. I mean, I'm just showing what you're supposed to do. I mean, in my world, like, I signed up for this. Like, my kids, when they came out, I told them I was going to protect them. When I made that promise to my wife, it's through sickness or through health, till death do us part. So I think, like, if I could relay anything or just share anything with other men out here that are listening to this, it's just, focus on the things that matter. For me, my list is in this order, and it doesn't change. It's God, my kids, my wife, and then it's my career. I've always been very work driven, money motivated. I love work. Who doesn't like money? And I try to focus on the hobbies and stuff, but if this has taught me anything, it's take the time, spend the time with your family, be patient when it comes to your kids. Look, I used to get mad at my kids for all the time, like, go to bed, you should go to bed. And it's just, but like, since this has happened, I'm calmer. Like, I try to explain to them, hey, why I'm saying this, or like, why you need to do this. It's important why we do that. So, it's made me a calmer person. But yeah, just be present as far as with your family. There's a lot of things that pull us in multiple different directions, but at the end of the day, your kids, your wife, those are the people that need you most. So it's important to make sure that, work your ass off, do all you got to do it on the job or whatever your passions are, but 100% of your attention should always be given to your family when you're at home and you're listening to them.
I couldn't. That's just speaking truth, because I feel like when this happened, it's like everything that you thought was important, some of the things literally just became the most unimportant thing ever. Like, oh, that meeting? Oh yeah, go ahead and fire me because I'm not going to make it because my kid's, sick or whatever. It's like, it's just like, pop, like instant perspective. I can only imagine.
Absolutely. Like I'm lucky enough. I have a great boss. He understands that. But I used to wear the weight of the world, like with my job, and be so stressed out. And, now I'm still a priority. Don't get me wrong. I still take my job very serious. But It's like, God, you're so relaxed, even dealing with customers. I'm like, look, if they've been through half the shit I've been through, they'd understand. But like, just because you're the owner of a company, I'm not going to I'm going to tell you what I'm thinking on my mind. I'm not going to, I'll come at you in a professional manner, but, let's just solve what we need to solve, and if you don't like it, then okay, it is what it is. Like, I'll move on to the next. So it's taking a lot of that like away, that's really helped. And just focus on coming home, being with my kids, or spending time with my wife.
Well, man, keep doing what you're doing. I would love to get you back on in, 6, 7 months, 3 months, just whenever, just to keep up with this.
Absolutely. My story's not complete. So I anticipate a lot of big changes coming up here. But yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity to sit here and tell my story with you, and share my struggles, and hopefully this will help impact somebody else, and just let somebody know, like, even if it is bad, again, somebody's always got it worse. It's how do you keep moving forward is what matters. So you can't, giving up is the worst thing you can do. So you just got to continue to figure out a way to fight and claw yourself through whatever storm you're going through, and just hold tight, man. God's got you. Just ask for his help, and eventually he'll reward you. He'll come through.
I couldn't think of a better close right there than what you just said. What I would like to do is, at least in the description too, and link to this is, I don't know, are you guys still doing any more like the shirts like that I'm seeing here?
I've stopped those, but I can always restart those up, because I think that would be I can always start it back up, so it's easy to start that up.
Yeah, it would be interesting. I only got probably 3 or 4 friends down here in North Carolina, but it would be interesting. I think everyone can relate. We all relate, and we draw closer to pain in just real genuineness. And that's what you're bringing, dude. And so I would love to just, like I said, I think I just put more information on YouTube under the description, just so people can follow your story too. Because I think the more people behind this, more people praying about this. I think, what'd you say? Shake the heavens? How'd you phrase it?
I wanted to shake the sky, so God
shake the skies. Yeah,
God knew
dude.
That whether he was listening to a million other prayers, like my prayer was going to be the loudest. So, and like I said, we've been strong. I sold over 200 shirts. And again, it's not even about, like, I don't even think I make anything off the shirt, to be honest with you. Like $5-10 bucks. I could care less.
Right.
It's more about the name. It's Peyton Nation. It's having Peyton across people's chests. Or, when people, if I'm out in public and I see somebody wearing that, it's going to make me smile. It's going to be a story to tell Peyton when she's back to health. And at the same sense too, it's a reminder for people to know that, through one, things are challenging, through a lot, you can overcome a lot of obstacles. So, each time I see somebody wear that Peyton, I know they're probably saying prayers for my daughter, or they're doing stuff like that. And you just get the community behind you, and they'll support you. And I can't thank those people enough. They've been, the messages, the outreach I've gotten has just been tremendous. So.
Well, ma'am, I appreciate you taking the time. Like I said, I'll put everything in the description. But other than that, dude, we're praying for you. I know a bunch of people are praying for you, and I just appreciate, like I said, you just sharing your story,
Absolutely.
dude.
Like I said, I appreciate the opportunity. Always good to catch up with you as well. I hope you, Kristen, and the family's doing well. And again, I appreciate the invitation to come join you here.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate it. Let's talk again
good.
soon. Y'all, thanks for listening. I have a lot of thoughts, and but at the same time, not a lot to say. Just as I just reflect, and we reflect on all that we have to be grateful for. And I think when I see Mike, walking with his daughter through the kitchen, just trying to get her to learn to walk again. Like I said, I just have a lot of thoughts, but not a lot of words. I see a man who's given his children and his family everything he's got, and he's given them his most precious gift he can possibly give them. He has a gift. We all have a gift, and we need to give that gift to those that we truly love and the things that we truly love. And that's our time and our presence. And I see a guy who's fighting. And again, I think that fight just even just looks just like teaching teaching your daughter to walk again. And just giving her your presence. And so that's what I challenge us to do this week. Is just to think about how we spend our time throughout the day. We all have the same amount of time. It doesn't matter if you live 100 years or 20 years. If you live for 1,000,000 years, we all have the same amount of time, and that's just this current moment, this current second. It doesn't matter how long you've lived or before or after. It's just this. And so I would challenge ourselves and challenge myself to really sit down and think about how I dole out my presence. And I'm going to put some information in the description for Mike's contact information on social media or however you want to follow along and support him and just follow along as they journey through. I ask you to subscribe to it, share to it, and we'll see you next week.
So I go, what will I be? It's who I am. What will they see? Maybe I pray, yeah. At the end of my days, yeah. What will they say?